All right, I'm in. This is the Buried in the Bones podcast, episode 003. And man, last week was cool. Didn't expect so many people to listen in as quickly as I did. I think I got 10 hours of listeners my very first podcast, and the feedback was awesome. And I remember someone specifically coming up to me and saying, I think the most appreciated thing about it was it didn't feel like I was reading to them. And I think that is kind of the goal with what I'm doing. Is there is a trend in today's world where everything's got to be perfect and the aesthetics got to be right. The words I say have to be perfect and they have to hit home every single time, and that's not human nature. And that is not my philosophy, nor in training. How often are you going to be perfect on every rep? How often are you going to, finish your feats or your endeavors? And, are you going to learn from them? And that's what we're talking about today: when to learn, how to lose, and what's a win. And it's more important now than ever to possibly sit back and think about what tools we have at our disposal. And the first one is, it's kind of cliche, we've heard it before, but it's, man, if you could put it inside of a pill, it'd be the world's best-selling drug. And I want you to hold on that, because I'm going to touch on it. And it's going to surprise you, probably surprise you in what I have to say about that, and maybe empower you a little bit to be like, okay, I understand. I'm me. And so the first thing is when to quit. And I think quitting has an association around it, and it's always negative. It's the labeling thing. We're so quick to label. It's you're a quitter. You're quitting, and I don't want to be that person. I don't want to quit. And I think we need to recenter our focus, and actually, if I quit something, it can actually be used positively and tactically to support my life going forward. And it's the first step, I guess, is awareness. And today, awareness really requires our senses, and our senses are so spread out everywhere. It's even like right now with my podcast, you are spread thin. You are on Instagram, or you're on TikTok, or you're on Facebook, and you're reading about politics, and you're reading about fitness feeds from this person and this person, and you probably have your TV on and the Netflix episode Severance, which is a great show. We're distracted, and it's hard to become self-aware when my energy is perhaps tactically taken advantage of and spread throughout on just various places. And what we have to do is we have to sit down and decide what it is what needs to be quitted, right? What is taking my time? And in today's world, in that world of consumerism, we need vicious removal, which is quitting. So think about the people in your life and the things I'm watching on television and the things I choose to give my time to, things I read. If you're on X, which I don't get on there anymore, but I should, maybe, I don't know exactly. If I'm on there, just think about all of these engineers that have developed an algorithm to support exactly what it is you want. So if I want and feed off negative things on the internet, or if I'm watching world problems, it's going to feed you that thing. And it's on Instagram too, it's on your Facebook, but it's whatever. In a world of consumption, overconsumption is actually consuming you. And we have those people in our lives too. Those people who call you, you've talked to them, you probably love them, we all do, and you're on the phone for 3 hours, and after the 3 hours, I sit down and I'm like, wait a minute, I just talked about you for 3 hours. I consumed all of what you were telling me, and I gave you all of my energy. That's not a deal I want to make. And so how can I become self-aware and explore me when I'm giving out all of my energy that I could be using to at least sit down, think about what it is and where it is I need to put my energy into to become a better person. And so, yeah, in today's world, the overconsumption it bothers me. And then the second part of that is what's happening is we have a lot of people who want to be experts and they want to bypass the experience that's required to be so. How can you get on track when you have this misinformation coming at you from everywhere? And some of these people, you might be listening, you're an expert, right? So all of a sudden we're being spoken to, or you're speaking to people, and that is my hope, is maybe I don't get there and I'm not doing that to you guys, but bypassing the experience that's required to be an expert, it also seems like we're outsourcing solutions to the experience that can only be explored by us. And it really is mind, body, spirit, right? And all three of those have to mesh and merge well, in order to be self-aware. And I can't tell you the study, I just read it recently. Actually I didn't even read it, I heard it, and so do with this what you will, but it does make sense. There is a big group mass of people, and this might just be common sense, but there's a big mass of people who believe to be self-aware, and there's only a 5 to 10, 15% of people who actually are. And that just seems like a classic historical, the masses thing, right? And I think it's just because everyone's hearing the same thing on Instagram, even fitness and strength coaching. There's a billion people saying the same thing. And it's not necessarily the correct information, but it's delivered as if they're the expert without the experience in training people. And because of that, the next person is empowered to do so. And there's just not a lot of autonomy or creativity that's going on. But I think if you guys are listening today, you're probably not trying to be the expert. We're more interested in change, or at least enhancing where we already are. And so I think I said, people are outsourcing solutions to an experience that's to be explored by you. And the first experience, I think, is the movement experience. And if you are where you are today, then it seems we need to quit things. And that is the people, and that is maybe the books I read, right? And the inactivity, or the snacks. And you've heard this term, quitter. And it's been negatively associated, but it hasn't been celebrated. It's like, if you quit something strategically and selfishly, that is a noble action, in my opinion, that allows you to get healthy enough down the road to make selfless action. Yeah. And I think you have to be a little bit selfish. You got to take care of yourself, And so sit down, maybe take a moment. You can pause this if you want to. Take a moment. Think about what's negative. Think about things you can substitute for it. And quit it. I'm in a place in my life where I just got recently married. Some of you guys know that. And got a house and a dog. And this really cool closing of a chapter on what was my life before. I remember this. I was talking about it. I think I wrote about it on one of my posts. And I remember we were in this Airbnb for our wedding. It was beautiful. And I was the last one to leave. We had closed up. We had our weekend there. We stayed a couple more nights. And I had the key. I walked outside. And I just remember sitting there. I could almost bring a tear to my eye now. It's very sweet. I just remember sitting there looking at, and I was like picturing this beautiful moment where all these people were there. They were celebrating Cal and I. And I just knew that as soon as I locked this door, it's like, oh my God, this is quite literally the closing of a chapter to what I was, and now who I am with, and what I am today. And it was almost like locking that door meant that I had to quit some of the selfishness that was not benefiting Cal and I, and some of the people in my life that were not supporting Cal and I, and the lifestyle that I want to create, and the fitness endeavors that I want to do. I want to be a writer. I want to do this. I want to help people and have immediate impact. And none of that is going to happen if I listen to people who don't necessarily want to see me succeed, or go out on the town, and get myself in situations where people are intoxicated and people act outlandish and sloppy, and it's not my thing. Some people still want to have conversations that I don't necessarily align with, and I had to quit it all. As soon as I turned that key, as soon as I turned it in, I was like, it was the sweetest moment and one of the most introspective thoughts I've had in a long time. It was really sweet. But in a consumer world, consider vicious removal. Quitting's not always a bad thing. But that gets me to losing. And just as quitting is misused, I think losing is misassociated. I think every time someone loses, or whatever they associate that word to be, it's always failure. It's, as we know, failure to human beings physiologically is, I get depressed and I get sad and I have this lack of belonging and I don't have a lot of self-worth. That's who I am. I associate, or we, and I certainly have done this, I'm sure you guys have too, but we've associated failure with ourselves. And we have to separate that. And this is just what I know to be true, but losing and failure are very different. And losing is essentially it can be grief. You may have lost somebody. It can be a sporting event. It can be work or jobs, things like that. It can be uncontrollable, or it can just, it can be uncontrollable, or just, a poor attempt and a outcome that was suboptimal for you. And I think the important differences are the fundamental aspect of losing is the practical side of that. It's like, I lost someone in my life. I lost this race. And so I take that generally. That is the general idea and the general, situation. And then the difference in failing is how and what is my character response afterwards? Who are you racing with? I spoke about it last week, but life's not a sprint. And what are you sprinting to? And are you walking? And are we applying gentle pressure into our lives? And whatever happens in our lives, I think acceptance is the key. And let me tell you about me. When I was a kid, my parents divorced, and you guys will appreciate this. Some of you guys listening may not know about this about me. And so here we are. I was a kid, parents got divorced, we moved out to Florida. I think Hurricane Charlie or something like that hit. Ended up moving back. The person that we were staying with ended up passing away. We went back down to Florida, and then we moved back, and life goes on. My mom marries another man, and that guy wasn't the best man ever, and whatever. But most importantly, the overwhelming big thing that happened in my life was my father passed away when I was 15. And so, long story short, I was a high school athlete playing some travel ball, trying to get recruited, and I remember my dad would come visit me, and he came to a game, right? And basically, he was like, "Oh man, do you want to come over this weekend?" And of course, I was in high school, and I actually had like a drinking night planned at the age of 15, and I suppose that weekend he had the same idea, and whatever happened. He had a falling accident. He tried to jump into a pool essentially, and I guess he just missed, right? And so, yeah, what and how the hell do you accept that as a kid? And well, the first thing is I didn't. I think the Stoics say it most importantly, but you can't conceal the truth, and my mind then was not the same as it is now. This is just what I'm learning today, but my first tool was me. And I didn't really quite understand that really until college, where I started to explore my own heart and mind and go on a journey that's worth going on, and not setting my foot in the sand, and just taking life and allowing life to do what it will to me. I don't want to be a castle in the sand. And although we all might be, at least in this life, there's people that I can help and speak about their journeys and figure out a way to tie what I know very well, which is strength and conditioning and fitness, and then some philosophy along the way. And yeah, so I sought after refuge, and another Stoic practice, but this is, I think, a fundamental kind of spiritual idea, is that the refuge is in you. And Carl Jung said it as well, in some regard, where there is a spirit that lives within you, and whatever name you choose to give it, we're all just blossoming flowers on the stem of an eternal tree. And I read that recently. It's a great book, Modern Man in Search of a Soul by Carl Jung. If you've not read it, you should. But yeah, refuge is in me. And movement, historically, has been my teacher. And how do I know that? Well, the Stoics, even Paul, Timothy, the Greeks, they essentially just said that the body was the vessel for your mind. And for me, physical exploration is a tool that I can use for mental purification. It's it's the endorphins, it's the thought process. It's how do I conquer little mini wins or mini losses. If my knee's hurting, okay, I can just give up completely and stop moving, or I can navigate the movement problem and self-explore that. Or if I'm doing a hard exercise or a run, how do I get to mile 5 when mile 4 feels shitty? Every single step you're like, I don't want to. Okay, I don't want to. Okay. And there is something there. And not just, in that sense, but just exploring what it means to see what you're capable of, as cliche as that is. It really is important. And it's really just step one. And so back to failure, which is depressing and sad. Michael Singer, in The Untethered Soul, he wrote, and I may be botching this, but this is how I took it. how can you fail something when that something is what you are? And I'm going to think about it physically, physiologically. Every action, every decision, every moment has gotten you to where you are today. And it's kind of amazing if you think about it. It's like, oh, actually, you're 100% on track. You're a perfectionist. Every single decision, right or wrong, every single thing, your body has curated what it is today. It's perfect in that sense. It got you to where it felt physiologically, subconsciously, whatever that may be. It got you to where you are today. And it's not right or wrong. How can you fail that? You can't fail with what you are. I think the decision and what failure is more so, am I going to choose to make a decision that makes me better? And then, are my decisions today helping people? And am I giving myself away in some regard? Am I helping others? Am I benefiting my community? Or are people around me getting better? And am I actually hindering or hurting people from the decisions? And then in that case, it's not necessarily about who you are as a failure. It's just that the task at hand is there is omission of what is expected, right? I would assume we all deep down want to help others around us, and it's really easy to forget that, man, the way people are experiencing you is not the way you are experiencing them. And I do not think about that. And that may just be a problem of mine, and we all have that problem, but it is true, and even if you can't get there, just hear it at least once, and then say it once a week, once a day. And yeah, so I think failure, the definition, the omission of an expected action. I think from this point, it is, to me, and this is my personal opinion, failure is when I no longer am helping others succeed. I am making selfish actions that do not benefit others, and I'm not helping my community, and I'm making others suffer. And so that doesn't mean you are a failure. It is just the decisions we're making are failing. We have course corrected closer to failure, and no one truly reaches it, because I think we all have an opportunity, and we all have chances to backtrack or course correct, if you will. And it's super important. And it can start with the movement problem, right? How do I get this to do this, right? And so in today's world, I guess the question, I say it a lot, but it's, how can I take care of others if I cannot take care of myself? If I cannot take care of others, and this is just me, but I feel like I'm failing. And as a man, and I think that's important. And so, with that being said, what's a win? And, this is not. I need to fix that. But, although positive, I almost want to take winning and maybe look at it from a different angle. I think winning is used actually in a very negative sense for the most part in what we're doing a lot. It's everyone's gifted too many. And I'm going to use gamblers a lot in the next 15 minutes, but there's a gambling problem, right? And it's really just impulsive actions. And we have this top-down approach of people and engineers who understand the psychological aspects of what kind of fires up here, and then what we desire. And then you create an addict of chasing wins. It's like the gambling problem. And the worst part is we get a taste of what it could be like to win, and then just, what's the word I'm looking for here? It's these statistics of getting that win again are low, and it's going to cause impulsive action, because every single time I lose, I want to get closer back to the thing that I thought I was winning. And the problem with that today, and you guys know this, it's really, respectfully, addicts in general are just the deterioration of me in a communal sense and relational sense is the deterioration of we. As I make these impulsive actions despite, it's funny, haha, for a while. It always is. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm losing a lot of money. Or, at least in the gambling sense, the worst thing ever is like sports betting. But every single micro action, I'm giving myself away. I'm losing a sense of myself. I'm losing my cognitive ability of self-control. And it's always like, just one more. It's just $1. It's just $1. And one of my mentors told me the greatest way to lose a fortune is spend a little a lot. And, I love tying it into things that aren't directly correlated. But, what I'm also, the more I spend, the more of myself I give away, and the less I'm probably giving to someone else. And that's probably emotionally, relationally, lovingly, professionally even. And it's just a lack of control. And so what we need is like the slowing down of, and I'm going to tie this in a second, but in order to fix it, you have to slow down. And, you have to create a sense of awareness. And so this is how strength training and fitness comes into play. But there's no immediate fix. There's no impulsive action. Most people have to work really hard to get into the gym for the first time. I had to work really hard to go upstairs and work out today. And most of the time, it's going to require some hard work and movement to get on the other side of what is reward, right? So serotonin, endorphins, endocannabinoids, if you listened last week, right? There are ways to get what you want, but it requires investment. And on the other side of that coin, this is where it gets spiritual, and this is how we tie it into the gambling problem. There is a positive and negative feedback loop that keeps course correcting back to an impulsive action. For people, when they get involved in fitness and exercise, it is impulsive, intrusive thoughts. I'm not good enough is one of them, because it feels like a pressure release to you to say it out loud. It makes you feel a little bit better because it feels like it reassures you in that moment that it's okay to say that. As strange as that sounds, I'll coach people and, something's hard, or before any evidence of inability, they say, I'm not good enough. And you're like, well, what are you talking about? And I understand. There has been it's almost like a way to save yourself in the moment of ego or hubris, if you will. I love that word. And people will say it, and it just feels a little bit better to say that than possibly dive into the realm of task failure. And I think what is important to note there is we have built-in safeties, and someone else's might be, oh, I'm not doing that. Why would I do that? Why would I do that? I don't need to do that. It's like, I'm here to tell you, if that's how you're responding and that is your immediate reaction to anything that could be threatening a physical stimulus or sensation or mechanical structure, I'm here to tell you, you need it. So, some people play that game, and I think it's just on the other side of the coin as well of the negative self-talk. It feels a bit better. It's a feedback loop and a habit that we've created. And for a while, I didn't quite understand it until I got into like ultra endurance for a little bit. And I did a rim to rim to rim. And what that entails, and I maybe touched on this last week, but really what it entails, it's a 48-mile endeavor where you start at South Kaibab, you go to the north rim of the Grand Canyon, which is close to Vegas, and then you go back down and you go back up Bright Angel back to the south, right? So south and north to south. And you want to do that within a day. And I just remember getting down South Kaibab. I think we're 13 miles in, and someone in the group at mile 13 was like, "I'm already having thoughts," and I was like, "Man, I still got like 30 miles, 35 miles to go." I was like, "Oh no!" But in that moment, it just feels like if I can say that enough early on, it will help me build justification for why I could fail later. You know? If I can present a problem now, the safety, the fallback, when I get a little bit more uncomfortable and the possibility of failure becomes a bit more heightened, I have something to fall back on and then justify my reasoning. It's like, my ankle. And I do not recommend doing anything like that, but it does translate the same to strength training. If you're lifting a weight and I hand you it in your hand, it's like, that's pretty heavy, you know. And if you think about it like this, if you're doing like 12 reps of something and I give you 2.5 pounds more, the expectation is probably either the completion of the same repetitions or plus or minus 2 reps, right? Maybe even 3. But it's amazing when you hand them that. It's like, oh God, I don't know. And you're like, it kind of has to happen. I mean, it can't not happen. You didn't like get that much weaker. And I would say 99% of the time, if I encourage someone to lift something or I encourage someone to challenge themselves, it's not because I want to sadistically see them fail. It's just because we are playing this game, and I, at the end of the day, need to be your teacher and coach before I become your friend. I'm not being paid to be your friend. That is a byproduct of the product that I deliver as a professional and someone who takes their craft seriously. And you, the client, or whoever comes in, or whoever's listening now, the expectation of a coach would be to kind of know their student. And I'm about to touch on this, but to know them, know what they struggle with, and if that feedback loop of negative self-talk is in the consideration, then we have to fight that. And it's not because I don't care if you get the weight. We don't care. We're all adults and people have lives and they go to work and 9 to 5s. My work, fortunately, is in the gym and it's awesome. Wouldn't trade it for the world. And it's never about weights lifted. It's about the person I'm becoming. And little micro wins like that are super freaking important. And I would speculate that those little comments, those little negative self-talk things probably happen on the projects you create. And I go into the lab and I did this in school, but someone goes into the lab and they get this big document of all these things. It's like, I can't do that. It's too much for me. It's the same thing. It really is. It's the same way, and the way I handle it's going to be the same. That goes back to acceptance. How do you handle grief? And it's like, first, you don't conceal it. I'm not going to conceal what is happening. As a matter of fact, this sucks, right? No matter what the loss is. Then I find refuge, and I use the tools I have at hand. And the first tool that I have directly is myself. And if I have myself, which is the vessel for my mind, it must be the home for my spirit. And because of that, I can take action and curate something that I'm proud of, and how I handle things I'm proud of. And that, to me, is something that I strive for. And back to the coaching thing, I used to think I want competency and not codependency. I want to coach people to be able to do things well. And that's one thing. That is the practical application of strength training or fitness. But now, as I've gotten better and my life has gone on and I have explored other areas of life and I have different senses and sensations and have expanded my mind by exploring my body, I now identify more as a teacher and hope to have what I would call students who begin to have the mindset shift of just working out to training. The Greeks did it. They had Athlos academies, and they used even the Stoics or Hippocrates and some of these folks who were like the inventors of medicine. And Benjamin Franklin even said this. But the doctor of tomorrow will be someone who I'm gonna botch this quote, but essentially someone who knows the ins and outs of nutrition, psychology, and movement, right? And we can do that. It's hard. The Greeks, their Athlos academies, they basically took kids and they just took their youth and they put them into gymnasiums and they used it as not just a teacher for physical exploration. They used it as a way to confidently overcome things, and those practical skills and just the nuance of reaching points of stress and then making confident and cognitive decisions to either go another way or conquer it. And that is pretty much how most decisions should happen. It actually requires a step back, and it requires my ability to be self-aware and then know that in the moment, if you are stressed out, if you are going through fitness, if you are doing an event, if you are strength training, the person and the thing that's happening when I'm like stressed out, the negative self-talk is not who I am. I was talking about it with a client of mine. She's going to be on this podcast one day. Even if you're listening right now and you don't agree to it, you're going to be on here. I'm not going to give your name up yet, but we were doing a terrible workout and she's doing a really cool event. And it is so funny. I do the same thing, and a lot of people do. When you're in the heat of something that's uncomfortable, it's like, my legs, As soon as I make you laugh, it's like, my legs, yeah, that was funny. They click out of it. And that's because, and I think Michael Singer said this too, and I was talking to a buddy about it the other day. It's funny how this lines up. Universe is cool. All these things that are going through your head is not necessarily who you are. It's just a product of a bunch of physiological circuits and chemistry and emotions and all these things that I get to sit back on and decide who I'm going to be going forward. And is that rational? Is that not rational? Then I make a decision. And so, what is a win? I think before we get into that, I think before you can truly see what it's like to win and go after that, let's learn how to lose first. No more justification for lack of effort, no more negative self-talk. Explore yourself. And if it is a situation where you explore and you give a suboptimal, effort, and it's not what you wanted, we can lose with grace. And we can apply gentle pressure to ourselves as a way to get better and curate a better body. The physical condition, in my opinion, the physical condition of who I am is a direct representation, at least for me, of where I'm at spiritually, mentally, and physically, right? And this, my vessel, it is my portrait, if you will. And people have said that before, I'm sure. You're architects. You are the architect of your body, but as you explore your body, you also are the architect of your mind. And you can fix that by consuming things that are better for you and consuming people that benefit and actually give you life, and stop reading, and you can quit things, right? You can quit things that are negative and suck the soul out of you and consuming you, your spirit. You know, you are the vessel, and buried within you is your soul, and you are the fitness pill, right? You get to select your dose. And if you need more of it, if you need more movement and self-exploration and discipline and awareness, you get to select your dose. And so I say we should move our mouth less and move our body more. And some might say, and some might talk about it, and they're going to be like, well, you're a little forthcoming, or that was kind of rude, and how dare you say like your physical presence is a representation of your heart, mind, and soul. And I say, what's so bad with that?